Time to rewind and open your mind. No late fees to annoy you this time. Video store might be no more, but we're digging up movies worth watching them for. Welcome to Video Store Graveyard, where we dig up movies worth watching and sometimes make sure they stay buried where they belong. As always, I'm Dano.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Tex.
And today we're talking about George Romero's movie from 1981, Knightriders. And this movie, it stars Ed Harris, also features Tom Savini in a leading role, lots of other great cast members, and a fun cameo from none other than Stephen King. I was excited about this one because this is, I would rate this, going ahead and revealing no qualms, as one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And don't want that to influence the decision and the opinions of my buddies.
It will.
But I want y'all to be as brutally honest about this movie as you want. This movie has a wide number of varying opinions about it, as it is a George Romero movie, but not a horror movie. It is a fantasy passion project based upon both the Arthurian legend and the Society for Creative Anachronism, which is one of the reasons why we have so many great Renaissance festivals all over the country. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into more of the interesting facts about that. I know Frosty's got a few. Andrew, I know you've got plenty to say. Tex, I know you've got some interesting opinions, and you didn't know exactly what you were getting into with this. So I want to go ahead and get to you guys and let you know what y'all thought of it. I'll just give a quick rundown of the plot. The movie is about a traveling group of Renaissance Festival members that do motorcycle jousting, and they travel to different towns and put on a show, and all basically following Billy, played by Ed Harris, who has a sort of a King Arthur figure. He's the king of the troupe, and he started this in many ways to escape what he viewed as a corrupt and weird society that he didn't want to be a part of. So he's living the dream of Camelot, and he brought others along with him, but that dream is slowly starting to be shattered by the realization that they're running out of money. They're having to deal with law enforcement, small town law enforcement assholes, and all number of things that are contributing to the struggles of this traveling fair. And the dream of Camelot is starting to die. And I have so many things I'll say about this. I want to hear what you guys think. Tex, why don't you go ahead?
Actually, if you don't mind, if it's all the same, Andrew, what do you got to say first?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're going to let me go first?
All right, you're almost out of time.
Oh, okay. I'm out of time. I only have 30 seconds to say what I have to say. Jeez.
Right, oh, my. How did you feel?
How did I feel about this movie?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm one of those people who enjoys George Romero, usually with whatever he does, and he's gone off a couple times and not done a horror film specifically. But this is one of those movies that I quite frankly enjoyed. I did research a little bit before I watched it to understand that it was not a horror film, and that was as far as it went as researching. So I knew what to expect when I was watching this, and quite frankly, I thought it was actually a really enjoyable film and had some unique shots to it, and the score was pretty cool. You know, I enjoyed a lot about this movie, but I hear you have a unique opinion about this, Tex. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I don't know about... Well, I've never seen a George Romero movie that wasn't a horror movie. And honestly, I haven't seen any other George Romero movies other than all his Dead movies. I didn't realize initially until I started pressing play that this was not going to be a horror movie. And but it's George Romero, and it was Dano's pick. So, you know, I wanted to go into it with an open mind. And I actually came out of it at the end with conflicting views that now in time and retrospect, since I've seen it, I feel a little bit more comfortable with. But I do think okay, so for the technical stuff, I'll get out of the way. The technical stuff, it ran a little bit longer than I think it needed to. there's a lot of scenes where the motorcycles are, I don't know if anyone gave the spoiler review. This was spoilers, but so basically we got a group of people who have this club. They're half medieval, half modern because they're using the motorcycles. Obviously, that's the modern part. But these motorcycles are basically the stand-ins for horses. And so since they're actually not horses, they get to do a lot of cool little things with their motorcycles. The main thing that they do is they joust each other
Right.
with their motorcycles, and that's all cool. Like it was new to me. I found it strange at first, especially since the movie was taking itself, somewhat seriously. I mean, they're presenting this group of people in a serious way. But some of the scenes where the jousting, where these motorcycles are kind of going around in circles and circles, and 5 minutes later they're still going in circles and whatnot. I think some of that could have been cut just a tad. I'm like, we get it, okay? They're going in circles. Got it. It was a treat to see who's who of George Romero actors in this movie. People from Dawn of the Dead, the Night of the Living Dead remake, Day of the Dead, like a bunch of them were in this movie, and
Right.
and they weren't running for their lives. There wasn't any murderous things going on. There weren't, it was like a nice little normal situation with the people, just as like normal life. And so that was really cool to see all these people who were in all the Dead movies, actually in this movie, just playing a normal part. That was kind of a treat. It was fun picking out and like, oh wow, that's the dude from Dawn of the Dead who asked for a cigarette, and he has a big part in this movie, or well, a bigger part. And Ed Harris, from what I understand, this is his first. Is this his first major production? Does anyone like really have
I'm not real sure about that. I do know it was.
It was one of his first. One of his, like, not his first acting credit, but one of his first bigger ones, for sure.
Right. So seeing him in this was actually a surprise. I had no idea. I had no idea he had done a George Romero movie. If you had asked me before this, I'd be like, no, Ed Harris is not in a George Romero movie. That's stupid. But sure enough, he is. So I guess I'm the stupid one.
And then he went ahead and did Creepshow a year later after that.
And then he did Creepshow, right? And then so Stephen King did a cameo. And then I gotta say, Tom Savini being in this movie, and it was really funny to me that, I mean, I gotta word this the right way because I don't want to come across as insulting, but I think it was entertaining that Tom Savini's character in this is considered the hunk.
I mean,
and you know what? Good for you, Mr. Savini. I'm glad that you had that role. And then if you're listening, we love you. We're a big fan. But
Dude, the dude was ripped in this movie. Did you see that photo shoot scene?
I was about to say, I don't know, man. He's pretty hunky in this movie. I'm comfortable saying that for sure.
I see. Wow.
So yeah, Tom's. If you want to go ahead and continue, but
someone interject. Go ahead.
Tom Savini plays Sir Morgan the Black Knight, and he's kind of the foil to King Billy. We don't know the backstory of what too much, other than he got involved in the troop because he loved bikes, and then became part of the troop. But there's obviously this rivalry between him and Billy. Is it for the show, or is there something else to it? Because no matter what, it seems like King Billy does not want Morgan the Black Knight to win. Now, maybe it's because Morgan went in as, he named himself Morgan after Morgan Le Fay, not realizing Morgan was, a woman when he first did that. They kept bringing that up in one of the sequences. And this movie also tackles some topics, including troop member Pippin coming to terms with his homosexuality and finding love with Punch, one of the other members of the society. You've also got Brother Blue as Merlin. One of my favorite characters in this movie is Brother Blue. Brother Blue is actually the performance name of Hugh Morgan Hill, who is an African American educator, storyteller, and actor, and street performer. And he did a lot of spoken word and had a very unique way of telling stories. And I think they could make a whole movie just about him as a character himself, from his times performing in Harvard to this movie as well. He kind of, just like in the Arthurian legend, he guides Billy through his journey, and Billy's been dreaming about a blackbird that's coming to get him, and it foreshadows what happens where there's this part of the Renaissance Festival where members of the town that have bikes are invited to participate somewhat in the games, and it gets steadily and steadily more convoluted as they go. But it ends up foreshadowing one of the main sequences of the film. And Andrew, I kind of want to get your opinion. Just go ahead and tell me some of your favorite parts about it were, and maybe something that you didn't like. I'm always curious.
Okay, so I will say, I'll start off with the negatives, what I don't like about it. If I'm being truthfully honest, the length is a little long. Almost 2 hours and 2.5 hours. Granted, that didn't bother me too much, but I did start to feel it after a while. Like some of the shots, like, Tex said, like them going in circles and stuff like that, could have maybe been cut down a little bit. Now I have to understand that, this was a passion project, so maybe that's the way George Romero intended those scenes to be. So as far as that goes. But other than that, I can't really think of anything that I don't like, because in general, I thought, it was a well-shot movie. Seeing Tom Savini in a starring role was a treat. That was really cool to see, because usually people know him as, the effects guy, and,
Yeah.
oh, he does all this. But seeing him in an acting role was kind of cool, and, that was something I enjoyed. Just in general, I thought it was a very nice different thing to see from George Romero. Instead of doing a horror film, he did a serious, dramatic, mostly serious movie that was dramatic in a lot of ways. As you stated, Dano, there was the homosexual scene, or that was kind of unique. That was interesting to see George Romero tackle. I'd never seen him do something like that before.
That was a strange scene. It was handled in a way that I don't feel like any other movie really handled like this, or where it was like other people were like forcing this guy to come out, which was, to me, I was like, I don't feel like I've ever seen that, where there's this whole sequence that's dedicated to a bunch of people trying to get their friend to just like, be gay, just do it. Say it, and this guy's like, and this guy, they're like, do it.
Well, it's mainly the girl, Morgan's girlfriend. I can't remember her actress name. It's the wife of George Romero. Played that character, the kind of grease monkey character.
Is that George Romero's wife?
Yes.
Really, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Really.
Yeah, and she's best friends with Pippin, and but she's with Morgan, and she's trying to get Pippin to kind of because he's kind of, they're speculating and the people make the jokes, and she's like, well, I don't even know. Why don't you tell me? And then so it's a kind of an interesting scene where they're around the campfire, and he doesn't want to talk about it, and she's trying to get him to open up about it to them. And of course, Morgan's not helping anything, because he's one of the ones that's been contributing to the, he makes the initial joke of like Pippin actually is a woman or whatever. And so it for 1981, and that being one of the main topics of this, and this is the thing that makes me interested, is the fact that you guys, it's funny that the human drama of these characters, which is one of the reasons I find the movie so compelling, is these individual stories,
Yeah.
was not the part that y'all found the long-winded part. It was actually what's supposed to be the major action sequences are what dragged on. So that's hilarious to me. Is that's what way it worked for you guys.
That's a good point. That's a
Good
really
point.
good point, because I did appreciate all the characters. There's so many characters in this movie that you don't have to keep up with. But the movie presents so many characters with so many different things about them. And if you watch the movie all the way through, well then, you're invested. You're like, there's this character, there's that, there's like over a dozen different characters, and they're all going through their own thing. And the one thing they have in common is that they appreciate this medieval club that they love to do, and they have an audience. People go and watch them. All the Pittsburgh extras go and watch them, just like all the Pittsburgh extras in Night of the Living Dead. And George Romero really loves that Pittsburgh area.
Sure.
But yeah, it's so funny that you say that, Dano, because the action sequences, the technical part of it are probably the more critical parts that I have, but the characters I find to be, like, as a whole, in general, an ensemble cast, I found them very interesting.
The combat sequences, and I liked how when you talked to me about this earlier last week when we were talking over the weekend about the circles, which cracked me up. Because that's the thing. That's part of the sequence in the fight sequences is they do the initial joust where they have the sticks are cut so that they'll break easier, and then they do the melee where they use their sidearm, which is most of the movie is fought sidearm and not so much the joust. But what's interesting about those sequences is the commentary that George Romero does not shy away from making political commentary in his movies. That's one of the main things he does. Dawn of the Dead in particular. In this one, if you'll watch those, as you can't help but watch those sequences y'all are talking about, the fight sequences, he does a lot of cuts early on in the first two battles to the audience and how they're all kind of going crazy. And of course, the cut to Stephen King's cameo as Hoagie Man, where he's eating his sandwich with his mouth open. And you've got, but the relishing in the violence of the audience as you go on, and it gets more and more extreme. And then there's that sequence in the second battle where Billy gets really disgruntled and they start playing like the dance music instead of the medieval music, and they're all dancing around.
Oh, yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, and just showing that it's not what it used to be. And so you get to that final sequence after the troop breaks up and everybody kind of goes soul searching, and eventually they all come back together after Tom Savini's weird photo shoot times. And you see this battle that they do, I guess the final troop battle, but they don't have the crowds. It's just for them. And to me, that's and it becomes this emotional thing that this is the final conflict for Billy fighting Morgan at last. You get that final sequence. And of course, Billy has to give up his crown at the end. He's been defeated by Morgan. And that's a very moving part too, where Morgan, that's all he's wanted was to be king of this traveling Renaissance group. It means more to him now. He became disgruntled with the path of money that he was going on. And then Billy goes off. He's not king anymore, and that's all he knew how to be. And so that gets to, I guess, one of the scenes that you were telling me you had kind of mixed feelings about, Tex. The towards the end, the Billy, where he basically gets hit by a truck while he's dreaming about everything.
And Andrew, I don't know. I know we've been kind of going on a little bit. I don't know if you need to interject with anything right now, but the ending, yeah. I thought time would still help me a little bit with the ending. It has not. I still don't know how to feel about the ending. I don't know if I accept it, or I feel a little disgruntled, but I also have a little bit of acceptance. Andrew, how do you feel about the ending?
Um, you know what? I was fine with it. I didn't hate it. At first, I was a little confused. The more I thought about it, because I had a couple days to think about this, the more I thought about it, I was fine with it. You know, it's not the worst ending to a film that I've ever seen. Is it the best? No, but you know, I thought it was fine.
Could you get more specific on that for my sake?
For your sake?
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, what is it about it that was weird or that you liked or didn't like? What aspects of the ending? Was the funeral, the song, the truck? What?
At first, I didn't know how to feel about the truck. I was fine with the funeral and the song. That was all okay. I had nothing wrong with that. Um, After
Okay.
some time to think about it, I was fine with it. At first, I was like, "Oh, what? What just happened?" Now I'm like, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I suppose this is the way he wanted it to happen."
So if you were going to describe what happened at the end of the movie, what would you say?
Oh, good luck with that. You
I'll
wouldn't
take
believe me
that.
if I told you. You say it, Tex. I
I'll
wouldn't.
take that.
Nobody
So
would believe
after
me.
2.5
I'm just trying to
hours,
see if you saw the end or not. Because I'm like, did you see the end of the movie? I'm real
Oh, I
confused.
did.
he
No,
said the
Okay.
I
events of the
did.
funeral.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what did you think of the ending, Tex?
Um, I found it very hard to believe that after all that, although Ed Harris had this injury on his shoulder that needed to be stitched up by Merlin, and so I get it, right? That looked like a really bad injury. Um, he didn't go to a hospital. He only had he basically had his buddy stitch it up for him, right? Okay,
Right.
so I get it. He goes to jail, you know, he comes out of jail. Everyone's like, you need to chill out because, you know, you're bleeding all over the place. You're bleeding on my food. You're bleeding on your clothes. I'm like, okay, I get it. And then at the end, when everything seems to come together narratively for this group, then, you know, Ed Harris does his thing and he's gone. Um, I found it very jarring. Like at first I didn't feel like it belonged. I thought it was out of place. I thought that this goes against everything that the movie was trying to say. Um, but then on the flip side, I thought maybe it goes along a little bit with what the movie was trying to say anyway. Maybe the movie was trying to say there's duality in things. Um, Not everything's black and white. Not everything is an easy choice. Not everything. So I guess in that sense, I appreciate that the ending made me think a little bit. Like I'll give it credit for that.
Sure.
Although right now at this point, I'm still not sure if I actually do like the ending. I don't dislike it. I don't like it. I'm neutral. I'm still thinking about what was trying to be told, what was trying to be said about it.
If I can say anything,
Yeah. Go ahead, buddy.
I'm fine with the ending. It's just I'm also in that space where I keep going back to it. I think about it. I'm like, what was he trying to say?
Yeah,
Like, you know, visually it's fine. You know, it's whatever. But as far as story structure goes, I don't know what they were trying to say with that ending. That's the thing.
Okay.
Dana, why don't you fill in that
Let
blank?
me try to
Yeah,
break it
fill
down
it
for
in.
you guys.
Help me, Dano.
I'll try to break it down for you guys. Okay, so and just to kind of, you know, of course we've given plenty of spoilers in this already, so that's a moot point.
Absolutely. If you
Let me
haven't
go
seen
ahead and
this
get
movie by now.
yeah, let me get this down to you. So, what happens in the end for everyone listening is after Billy is hit by after he goes off and is hit by the truck, they have the funeral for him, and at the funeral, the song "I'd Rather Be a Wanderer" played by Donald Rubenstein, which was played earlier in the movie to Billy. And he said he really liked the song, and Donald's like, well, I'm not done with it yet. I'll play it all for you someday. So it's an emotional sequence of the funeral where they're playing the song, and everybody's around. And one of the central messages of the song is or the lyrics is like, I'd rather die in a hurricane than to never know the storm. I'd rather be a wanderer than to never go at all. And Billy's journey had ended after he was no longer king. He went to escape society and lived this fantasy life. And once he left the fantasy life, well, all he did at the end was he did go kind of on. He had a couple more missions he had left to do, which were go basically have redemption with the kid that he didn't sign the autograph for. He goes and goes into the kid's school and and basically says bye to him. Then he goes and confronts the small town dickhole sheriff that beat up his friend Bagman, and deals with him accordingly. So he is, like you said, y'all mentioned that the wound that never kind of healed is a direct reference to Arthurian legend, although not Arthur, Lancelot. Lancelot has the wound that never really heals, and it kind of dies from that wound, and the wound being that he felt he had betrayed his king. So Billy is worried about that. He finally succumbs to this wound of his once he's no longer king. It is the story. I look at this movie. You could look at this, and especially if you watch movies like The Joker or other interesting character study movies. This is, to me, even though it's all these individual stories, is really the character study of Billy or William the Knight and him fighting the dragon that is this corrupt world we live in. And he escapes it for a while, but once he goes back, he realizes, I can't go back to this. It's not a suicide, but it's just naturally his place in the world is over after he's left his world. That's the philosophical thing I get from that. And then you get the troop has all come together. You hear that song. It's a very emotional scene. Everybody's moved on. Alan realized that he was in love with Lynette, who was William's girlfriend, which also mimics the Lancelot story. But this is about a group of people that try to live a life that is not part of this world. To quote Terry Gilliam in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, your reality, sir, is lies and balderdash, and I'm proud to have no concept of it whatsoever. And to me, that's what it is about. It's about the fantasy and living the dream, as they say. And that's what I think that you're supposed to kind of get from that catharsis of Billy doesn't have to deal with the real world anymore. And it's kind of come full circle. That's my interpretation of the ending. It is a sad sequence, that funeral, but I loved hearing that song again, have its reprise, which to me is one of them. If I have a funeral, I want that song played at it. Donald Rubenstein did a great song, a great folk song. There's even a YouTube video of him doing a more recent version of that song. And so I was really excited about that. That's my interpretation of the ending.
We're playing Nickelback at your funeral.
Hey, I already have people threatening to do that. I've already people threatening to do that. I've got people watching that jukebox or that thing like a hawk. Anyway, hey, so one other little thing about this, and just another personal story. And I know that I'm making this a very personal thing, but this is one of my favorite movies, and I really wanted to share it with you guys. So I'm glad you got to watch it. And I think that with repeat viewings, it does sit with you differently. I like text that you're still thinking about it, not sure what you think, both of you guys, because that's kind of the feeling you get when you first watch this movie. Is you're not really sure what you think of the end or what you think of the whole experience. What did I see? But it moves you somehow. And I talked to George Romero the one time I got to see him at Frightmare. It was his last year there before he passed, and I got him to sign my Day of the Dead picture, and I got to talk to him for just a minute. I said, I want to tell you, Knightriders is one of my favorite movies, and he got this look in his eyes like, well, that means a lot to me. It was a movie that I felt a great deal about myself when we made it, and thanks.
Wow.
And there's a commentary on Arrow Video for those that are interested in this title. Other than the fact that we watched, I think everybody watched it Prime. I had a copy of it that I got Tom Savini to sign, not George Romero, unfortunately. But Arrow Video has done a restored version of this, I think, in 2015 that features interviews with different people, including Tom Savini, who said, "We got to ride motorcycles, hit each other, and hang out. It was the best summer of my life." Like, it's the best summer.
That sounds about right.
And he's all about that sort of thing. So, and then there's a commentary track with George and everything like that. So, if y'all guys anything else y'all want to say, but I'm ready to go ahead and give my rating, which I think is a pretty good.
I will say now that you brought that up, what Tom Savini said about the film, I did feel like all the characters had good chemistry, and it all felt like they were all acting off of each other. I thought that was very present throughout the film.
I agree.
Okay. This movie was heard a little bit when it came out in 1981 because it was released the same year as Excalibur, another movie about knights in armor that followed the Arthurian legend. Also an amazing movie. One of my probably also in the top 5. No coincidence that 2 movies in my top 5 have to do with the Arthurian legend. So anyway, easy top both horns up for me. Easy. I think this is anybody that enjoys fantasy or role playing or wants to see Ed Harris deliver one hell of a emotional performance should check out Knightriders, guys.
I'll go. I'll go. You know what? I still don't know how I feel about the ending, but you know what? For the rest of the film, I will say 2 horns up because I thought it's a well-made movie. There's really good acting in it. Yeah, some of the scenes are a little long, but in general, I think this is a movie I will go back to and I will watch again. Now that you've told me all that information, Dano, I think I will go ahead and watch it again and see if I saw what you told me. So
I'm really torn. I'm really torn in general. In general, I don't think, I'm not gonna lie. I fell asleep in the middle. I was bored, and I had to wake up and go back to where I started to fall asleep and rewatch it. So I felt like this was very time consuming because it's 2.5 hours.
It is long.
The story isn't my normal, like I didn't find it interesting from a movie perspective. So on the flip side of all that coin, this is George Romero. This is a bunch of good acting. They cared about their story that they wanted to tell, and they did their best to tell it in a respectful manner.
Well said.
They get all sorts of credit for that. It's not everyone's thing, so I get it. However, it's worn on me a little bit where I'm appreciative that George Romero went out and did something different. Even if the story didn't speak to me or reach out to me and no offense, keep me awake the whole time. I still think that because it's George Romero, I have a little soft spot. And Dano's story about how he got to tell George Romero in person that this was one of his favorite movies. I mean, that almost brought me to tears right there. Because, rest in peace, George Romero. And I know Dano's met and talked to a lot of these horror icons that we admire and idolize and talk about, and so I'm gonna go ahead and do two horns up because because I should make it clear, this is not the worst movie in the world. It most absolutely is not. The subject of the movie is really different. It's really out there. And for 2.5 hours, you kind of have to accept that.
Right.
And I think with another viewing, I may feel like better. Although I must admit, I don't know if I really will go and see this movie again. I may have it in the background for something for shits and giggles, so that I can see, just kind of have it in the background. But yeah, for now, and I may talk about this later, like the way I brought up Greasy Strangler. I gave it 0 horns. I ended up coming back later and I gave it 1 horn because I had time to process some things. I may feel like that about this movie, but I think I'll go ahead. I'll do the 2 horns up. If you're a George Romero fan, I would say that it is worth it to check out something different that he did and to involve all the actors that were in all his other movies in this too. And like I said, they really tried. They really tried. All the women and men actors in this movie really tried to do their part, and it shows. It really does. Just because I may not find the story appealing doesn't take away from the fact that they tried their best to do a movie that they cared for. So
Well
2
said.
horns.
Well said. Well
Up.
said.
I promise next time I do a pick, if I'll give you all a warning about the length. So heads up
That's
whenever
okay.
whenever
That's
I
okay,
choose.
man. No. Yeah, that's
Oh, no. I do want to bring up the length because I read that there's a European version that cuts at least 40 minutes of this.
I read that
Apparently.
too.
Wow.
So I'm curious to check that version out. I guess they cut stuff out.
By the way,
That's interesting to know.
whenever I pick
gotta
Das Boot,
say-
that's 4 hours.
I do gotta say that if they cut this movie just a tad, it could be a better movie. Not a better movie, but it could be more appealing.
Could
if-
flow better. Maybe flow better
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, but I think it's because I don't mind seeing the way he intended everything to be. That's
Sure.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say again, thank you guys for watching it, and I'm glad y'all got to check it out. I recommend it to other people out there in the that of course that are looking for something. Maybe who knows? Maybe they just like the idea of people jousting on motorcycles. What the
Yeah,
hell
no.
not? So anyway, that's so 2 from you, 2 from you, and 4 from me. That's an 8. I don't know.
Oh,
Okay. Any other news before we start to wrap up? I know Andrew, you had something to say on here.
I do want to say, unfortunately, we have the events of Kobe Bryant's passing and his daughter a couple days ago, and I did want to, mention that because, I thought he was a really good basketball player, and he just won about in 2017 a Oscar for the short film he voiced himself in, announcing his retirement. Dear Basketball. Recommend checking that out. It's only 6 minutes long. It's a pretty good little short film to watch. It's very unfortunate that what happened. We don't fully know what happened. It was a helicopter accident. They're saying it's the fog, but they're currently investigating it. So I want to say rest in peace to Kobe Bryant and his daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, I I'm not the biggest basketball fan here, and but I know who Kobe Bryant is because over the years, he was a big name. And when I heard the news and the circumstances and that his daughter was involved, and when things like this happen and like so many people feel for it, like he had a lot of fans. There's a lot of people that were really upset about this. They're really brokenhearted. I'm not gonna lie, I was really sad to hear not just about him and the other people that were with him in the helicopter, but that his daughter was with him, and she's only 13. She was only 13. I can't help but feel, that I can't help but feel bad about that. And I'm glad you did a shout out about it, because there are a lot of Kobe Bryant fans, and I may not be one of them, but I feel for it. And so my heart goes out to everyone as well in that regard.
Okay, and yeah, these sorts of things are when you hear about these kinds of tragedies that it happens so sudden. He is only 41. I'm 41, so all those kind of
Right.
things. But rather be a wanderer than never know the storm. All right. Anything else, guys, before we check it out?
That's about all. Unless you guys want to. Did we discuss that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show is getting delayed? I
Yeah,
don't know if we did.
I think we may have touched on that a little bit, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
It's
of
not going to
course.
start filming until next year, so that means at least 2 years
So we got time.
So
Yeah.
I think that sucks.
Yeah, it does. Which is very unfortunate. But,
So yeah.
oh well. This
Well,
usually happens.
As long as they get it right, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Good things come to those who wait. If it takes a while, as long as they do it right, you know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
I know you guys have to have everything expedited and can't sit through a 2.5 hour movie.
Hey.
But no, I'm just
Hey, whoa.
Don't be like my bosses.
Hey,
that
hold on.
mischaracterize everything in the frickin' solar system.
sorry,
No.
Hold on
I
a
was being
second.
passive aggressive and silly.
That game is 3 hours. Hold on, I sat through that in the theater.
Can't express an opinion without being mischaracterized.
That's true.
But yeah, I was excited for this show to come out relatively soon, obviously. Who isn't? But,
Right.
I agree with Dano. As long as they get it right, that's the more important thing.
Correct.
So I didn't see when it happens. So, okay. Well, go ahead. What?
Alrighty, that's it. That's all I had to say. Alrighty.
Well,
Ready. Alrighty, we're out. Goodbye.
all right, everyone. Catch us next time, and we'll see what we're watching next. We hope you enjoy listening to these. As always, feel free to like and subscribe. Tell your friends if they like movies and classics and forgotten weird stuff. Check us out, Video Store Graveyard, and we'll see you next time as the gates open. Time to rewind and open your mind. No late fees to annoy you this time. Video store might be no more, but we're digging up movies worth watching them for.
Time to power up the VCR. Headed to the graveyard of films near and far. Watching the strangeness we find on the way. Three crazy friendos with plenty to say. Come on our journey if you're so inclined. Leave sanity, hope, and good taste behind. Life isn't easy, but whatever is. Video store graveyard is open for biz.
Time to rewind and open your mind. No late fees to annoy you this time. Video store might be no more, but we're digging up movies worth watching them for. Time to rewind and open your mind. No late fees to annoy you this time. Video store might be no more, but we're digging up movies worth watching them for.